Hey, good morning from Kansas City, and welcome to SportsBeat Live, our weekly deep dive into the Kansas City Royals, a team of extreme in 2021. Right now, they're trending down, and we'll talk about why that is with the star folks who are with us today, beat writer Lynn Worthy and columnist Sam Mellinger. But first, let's thank our sponsor, the University of Kansas Health System. It's been great having them on board this season, and we'll hear from them later in the show. This is what they call one of those interactive shows, so please send us your questions and comments and talk Royals with us. Good morning, Lynn. Good morning, Sam. How you guys doing?
Good.
Good morning.
Hey, before we get started talking about the Royals on the field, and there's plenty to talk about with this skid that they're on now. I want to talk about something else that was on the field yesterday, and that was Sam taking photographs and being on the field. Sam, that's the first time for you on any, I imagine, any athletic surface in quite a while. I just want to know how it felt and what you got out of it.
Yeah, I mean, depending on what we count spring training, there was a little tiny bit of that, getting close to the backfields and stuff. But it was cool, man. Like Lynn was there too. Although he was wearing jeans and it was 97 out, I questioned that decision. But it was all the things, right? Like it was a little surreal. It was a little familiar. It was a little strange. It was like there's so many little, like, and some of this is like, no pun intended, but inside baseball stuff about I'd forgotten about like just normal social interactions without your neighbors, like, oh, there's somebody I need to go up and talk to them and make a professional whatever. And one thing that I think is hilarious among sports writers is like I've sort of thought of it as like the commodity of the hello. There's like if there's like a newsmaker, whether that's a coach or a trainer or whatever that walks by, and you just sort of like have to go, hey, name. And then like depending on their response, you're like, okay, I'm standing like pretty good. I can probably ask them this, but maybe not that. It's just this weird mental game that they don't prepare you for in journalism school. But it was great. All the weirdness. It was great.
And Lynn, I saw you conduct, part of the post-game press conference, as you always are. Only I saw your full face for the first time in quite a while. No mask on Lynn or anybody else in the press box who asks questions of players and Mike Matheny after the game. So was that a first for you?
Well, to be honest, during the game, you could have the mask off because the windows are open in the press box. That's the rule. Post game, we had been putting them back on because the windows come back up. Yesterday, for whatever reason, we just decided the heck with it. And so I don't know if that was actually a letter of the law. I think that was just sort of a group decision of what the heck, and just decided, we didn't put them back on. So I'm not sure. I mean, obviously it was on Zoom, so I'm sure people saw it. I'm just not sure if we're going to hear from anybody today about, hey, you guys aren't supposed to do that. But yesterday we just said the heck with it. Yesterday was not the day to be strict to the letter. We just said, all right.
Yeah, the reason I bring it up is we'll see you asking a question later in the show, and it's maskless. So when I saw that, I just went, wow, I haven't seen that in a while.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there was a game maybe in one of on the road where I might not have put the mask back on, depending on what the rules were there. So I think maybe I want to say Minnesota, because it's an open air press box, that I might not have put the mask back on there when on the road. But in Kansas City, we've usually had them on. So. And also, just to Sam's point, I'm weatherized. I grew up in New England, so I can in hot weather I can wear the jeans, and in cold weather I can be outside in -30. That's weatherized.
God bless you.
And you can drive on any surface, I think, as a New Englander as well. You're not afraid of the snow and the ice. So, hey, I guess we've put off talking about the Royals for as long as we can. We got to get into it. So I'm reading Lynn's game story this morning, and saw some pretty amazing numbers in that game story. you'd think the team that had 14 hits against the team that had used 8 pitchers, the 14 hit team would have come out on top. Not only did the Royals not come out on top, they got smoked in this game. I'll let you give us some of the other ugly numbers, but like runners and left on base, runners in scoring position, they've had some ugly losses in the last week and a half or so. They've lost 9 out of 10, but last night was just not a way to open a homestand.
Yeah, last night it was 1 for 14 with runners in scoring position, left 13 men on base. And for the last, let's see, he's going back to, I believe it's Thursday night when they actually won in Oakland. It's 2 for the last 38, I believe, is what it is with runners in scoring position, which is that's hard to do. That's you'd think by accident, you'd come up with a couple more hits or something would fall in, but they're just in that stretch where it's tough. It's tough. I mean, even Mike Matheny seemed to be at a loss to come up with some good explanations or to try and put some of a optimistic shine on it. It was I try to remember what his comment was. I think he just said there's no quick fix. And for the guy who's always, I think one of his phrases that we learned last year was there's never a glass half empty. It's always full, whether it's half full with water and half full with air. He says it's always full. Yeah, I didn't get a whole lot of full from last night. Just his vibe after that one.
Yeah, and just before we came on the air, I looked at Sam's had a tweet, Stathead tweet that just how rare a feat of the Royals accomplished last night. What was it exactly, Sam?
They became the 11th team in the last 5 seasons to have 18 or more base runners and 3 or fewer runs scored. So that doesn't happen very often.
No, that's rarefied air.
And Mike Matheny, Lynn was just talking about some stuff that Matheny said over the time that he's been manager. Doesn't it seem like in the last few weeks, I think maybe longer anyway, he has slowly gotten heavier and heavier into this team's like mental approach at the plate. And often he puts it in terms of like when things aren't going well, for one guy or one group, like they just sort of snowball, that it's hard. And the pitchers have the same problem, making adjustments. When things start off good, trains are on the tracks, like it seems like it's okay, but they have a hard time like getting out of funks. And he seems to be insinuating that when the team is struggling in the 3rd, 4th inning, they don't have a lot. The guys kind of tend to let that snowball, and I wonder if that's happening with this runners on base thing. That just mentally, it's just a hard thing to get past right now. There was Dozier was up with the bases loaded maybe twice, but there was one, I think it was like in the 7th inning, and it looked like he had 3 pitches in a row that should have been hammered, and the first one he took. And it looked like a hanging slider right over the middle of the plate, a little bit low, but certainly a strike. And the second one he fouled off, and then the third one he popped up. And in those situations, you can't let that happen. And I'm not trying to pick on Dozier. I know he's having a lot of struggles, but that's just one little example of a lot that stick out. It's just like one little. You got to be ready for that hanger and hit the snot out of it. And they're kind of caught up on themselves right now. It seems like there's just mentally, it's just hard for them to get going.
Let's hear from Mike Matheny, and we're going to hear from Matheny and Whit Merrifield. This is from the post game on Monday night, and both of them address what we're talking about. So, Beth, let's roll Matheny and Whit Merrifield.
The runners in scoring position and the left on base, is that what sticks out for you the most from this game, is the missed opportunities?
Yeah, without question. I mean, obviously, we'd like to have a different start. Brad looked like he had good velocity, good movement. It was just he's having trouble putting him where he wanted to. The ball was running to different parts of the plate. Obviously, need to big play to be made early on, it would help as well. But then we had our chances. I mean, you're talking about 4 out of the first 6 innings. We had opportunities to do something big. And we've been talking about this, whether it's situational hitting or it's the big hit. Both of those played again. And, there's no quick fix. We just got to keep fighting until we get it going in a good direction.
When it comes to the pressing that you sort of identified there, I mean, is there I guess a best way to sort of prevent that? I mean, I guess I know it's individually, obviously from guy to guy, but it just seems like obviously that's been a little bit contagious. At least it seems like that from the outside here recently.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of guys just mentally getting over that barrier. And, there's a lot of aspects to it. There's just the aspect of us losing, in the stretch that we've been losing. It's the aspect of us not hitting with runners in scoring position. And then there's that, aspect of guys not really getting off to a great start this year. And so guys are pressing about that. Guys are pressing about hitting with guys on base, and guys are pressing about, us losing. And it's I mean, it's tough. It's tough to overcome, and you just mentally got to push that aside and just attack every at bat and attack every pitch and just compete within yourself and the pitcher and see what happens. And I can sit here and say that all I want. I'm guilty of falling into that just like everybody else is. And it's part of being in the big leagues. It's part of baseball. There's a lot of failure that goes with it, and you got to be able to mentally overcome. And that goes for, like I said, that goes for myself as well.
I think Whit makes good points. Pressing, that's a thing, right? Pressing in baseball, I think we've seen it a lot with the Royals at times this year, and having some sort of mental block in these situations. I don't know of another way to explain it, to be honest with you. Do we accept what Whit's saying and Lynn and work with that? And what can you do to, what can the Royals do to keep their guys from pressing?
Well, I think the most striking thing to me is the fact that it's not, normally I would think of pressing as, an individual guy, I think last year when he was healthy, Dozier, I feel like pressed last year because he missed so much time. And then he's even admitted it this past spring training about how that was an issue for him. Having missed so much time playing in the short season and then coming in and pressing and trying to do too much in certain at-bats. And I think that's sort of the normal way, at least that I think about it. But to have a group of guys all in that same boat is just, I don't know. It's striking. It's it's one of those things that I feel like it's got to be really hard to break out of when you've got multiple guys in that same place.
Yeah, this is what we were just talking about, right? Before those questions about like what Matheny says about them doing this together. Remember, I forgot which year it was, 13, 14, 15, but remember Ned Yost? He said something like, these guys like each other so much that they slump together.
Yes, I do remember that.
Maybe there's some of that going on right now too. It's a real. But that's part of baseball's really hard. It's hard to hit, and we're seeing some of that now. Maybe now that the sticky stuff is being enforced. Maybe it can be especially enforced with runners on base for the Royals. But yeah, they're locking up, and I know we all kind of keep coming back to Dozier, and it's certainly not just him, but he seems to be the best example of it. He is such a conscientious, it's important to him. He works hard. You see the kind of shape that he's in. He's a really good teammate. All these things, which are great, but I wonder, I should say, whether that sort of leaves him more open to stretches like this, where it's not going well, and he might kind of press and try to, sort of try his way out of a slump, which, George Brett's the whole thing about try easier. which Mike Matheny is kind of mocked, by the way. You notice that? Like, he's like, I don't think he calls George by name. He's like, I've heard this try easier thing. I don't know what that means, but there is sort of a just kind of let loose and let it go, and they're certainly not doing that right now.
So you guys were both at the game last night, and I want to make sure. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but in the top of the first, when the game got away, Miguel Cabrera comes up, and Keller, Keller gets a couple strikes on him, and I can't remember if he ran the count full, but he fouled off a bunch of pitches, and then he dribbled a single up the middle and scored the Tigers' first run. I believe it was the first run for Detroit, and I just remember. Was that it?
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure it was an 11-pitch at bat that ended in that single. And off the top of my head, I want to say it was the second run, but
okay.
But I know which one. Like I said, I'm pretty sure it was an 11-pitch at bat, and he definitely drove in a run. I'm just not sure if it was the first or the second run off the top of my head.
And it wasn't. Listen, he wasn't a power swing or anything like that. All he was trying to do was get the run home. And listen, Miguel Cabrera is a Hall of Famer, first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the great hitters of all time. And but it just struck me the contrast between that approach that he took in that at bat and what I saw from the Royals later in the game. Again, Hall of Famer. He's been an amazing hitter for such a long time. But I just thought, so where's that for the Royals? Okay. Hey, so Rob asks, could the Royals, we're going to change subjects here. And Rob asks, could the Royals help call up pitchers to calm their nerves by having them pitch a few innings midway through the game before they make their starts? I think that's a good question. And we're going to let's transition into pitching. But first, let's hear from the University of Kansas Health System.
The Kansas City Royals lineup is backed up by the region's strongest team in healthcare, the University of Kansas Health System. We both suit up with one goal in mind: to win. The University of Kansas Health System, official healthcare provider of the Royals.
So Rob asked about starting pitches and maybe easing them into situations that are not starting roles, because what we've seen with Jackson Kowar for 2 starts and Daniel Lynch has been just disastrous. Really, it's really a shame to see. And I guess you could, if you had provided a list of possible outcomes for those players in their first, second major league starts, not getting out of the first or second innings would have been a possibility. But you just kind of hope that, especially with Kowar in his second start, that he learned lessons and figured it out and could get a little deeper. But that was not the case Saturday in Oakland. And we know about Daniel Lynch. Of course, he got sent down, and I suspect that's going to happen to Jackson Kowar as well. So, Sam, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. The young starters. The Royals have somewhat been forced into this situation because of some injuries, and of course, there was a lot of excitement, right, when they announced Jackson Kowar was going to be a starter, and when Daniel Lynch came up, but it just absolutely hasn't worked out.
No, I mean, you use the word disastrous, right? And that's what it's been. I mean, they've had those 2 guys have combined for 5 starts in, I think, 10 innings. Is that right? Something like that. Maybe even less. But anyway, I mean, I just Kowar is a really the Lynch explanation kind of made sense. Nerves plus kind of sloppy or inconsistent mechanics that may or may not have been tipping pitches. And Kowar may have some of that too. But it just, with Kowar, I'm more surprised than with Lynch. Lynch seems like sort of a 1 or a 10, like I think he's going to be, there's a lot of sort of he'll be up and down. And Kowar, just like who he is, and the pitch repertoire, the changeup is something that you should be able to pitch off of to get out of tight spots, and it's just not working. And that fastball, he's got a good fastball, but it's not good enough to leave over the middle of the plate belt high. And when he's not commanding, and he talked about this, right? Like when you're pitching off a changeup, if you're not commanding the fastball kind of low in the zone, then they've got no reason to swing at your changeup. And, so if he can, and look, this is a lot easier said than done. I sure can't throw 97 at the knees, but, if you can't do that, then, it kind of all snowballs away from him. And so I don't know, man, like he's too talented. He's got nothing left to prove in the minor leagues. He's ripped through there. So I don't know, maybe he'll get a little bit longer a leash than Lynch did. I don't know, but it's a problem. I mean, it's a pattern now.
What about the idea of starting them? I mean, you got to start them. But listen, to other organizations over the years, and look, even the Royals have done this. They didn't start their pitching prospects. They eased them in. They were either out of the bullpen or or late season, less pressure situations. Lynn, this Royals were kind of left without a choice here, weren't they, when it came to especially Kowar?
Well, yeah, in that they don't have a whole lot of starting pitching options, just in terms of guys that are more the guys that you feel like have a better shot than those young guys. I mean, like if you want to say you can run out, Irvin Santana, and Jacob Junis is now in the minors, but he had been in the bullpen, and so he wasn't even really stretched out. And obviously Duffy's on the IL, so I mean, you're not talking about a whole lot of options that necessarily are better than what you're looking at with these youngsters. Plus, you need to sort of get those guys ready for the future. Like if people want to look to next year and year after and say that's when they're going to start being good and they're going to have this rotation, well then they've got to get to that point. It's they got to work to that point now. It's not just going to happen next year when they okay, well now we're going to put them in the rotation, they're going to be good. Like they've got to build up to that. So that's part of the reason as well. But it's I mean, and I don't know that like that opener thing that the question was about. I'm not sure if that helps, because I'm just two things that I see with that is one is that you're also the bullpen has had some issues as well as far as depth, and so if you're taking one of those bullpen guys and putting them at the front of the game later in the game, it could make it even shakier depending on how things go and depending on what happens in that middle part of the game. And then also just, with those guys, I mean, if Jackson Kowar is still going to give you an inning in the third, whether that comes in the second inning or the third inning, you're still going to have some issues, I mean, so it's in theory it sounds good, but I mean, it still doesn't change the fact that he's got to be able to go deeper into the game, whether he comes in the second inning, third inning, or if it's starting the game. So, I mean, and I know like, Tampa Bay has been able to have success with that, doing that with certain pitchers, but I think there's still other problems that have to be sorted out before you can say that this is going to be a fix, the opener thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fix isn't, maybe if somebody else gets the 1, 2, 3 out, so you don't have to face the best hitters right away, maybe that can help, but it's still, maybe I'm just repeating what you're intending to say here, Lynn, but like, it's not going to matter if Kowar is still throwing 96 over the heart of the plate.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, yeah.
Not locating the changeup and all that stuff. It's just, that's what it comes down to. I mean, an organization and a pitching coach can only do so much. And these guys have to make the pitches at some point. And the Royals are in this awkward spot that we talked about before, where they think they can contend, but they know to do that, they need these guys to perform. And right now, that's an awkward spot to be like relying on these guys that just have shown that they can't do it so far.
So who had Irvin Santana in the pool of leading the team in innings pitched this year?
Oof, that is not good.
Not what you want.
No, not what you come to the ballpark to see, Blair.
No. All right. We've gotten this far into the show and have not mentioned the Royals' best player. At least I keep hearing he's the best player. Adalberto Mondesi is still not with the team or not in the lineup, and still in the still injured. Sam, you had an interesting.
There goes one of those size.
It's true. It's true. Sam, I read this in Mellinger Minutes, and we'll link to that in the show notes on the podcast. That you were asked about the idea of Mondesi not being a shortstop, and of course he was his most recent injury came, we think, right on the throw on a play that he made at shortstop. Does that take us through that idea of Adalberto Mondesi not playing shortstop and how that could possibly prolong his, well, maybe just get him back on the field initially and then maybe prolong his career?
Yeah, well, in the business, we call this a tease, right? And all this stuff that we were talking about, the young pitchers and now Mondesi, I think that's how you have to say it now, right? Like every time you say that name. Lynn and or I will be writing more about this week. I haven't asked specifically to anybody in the organization about this position switch thing, but I think it's worth considering. I'm not saying do it because there are legitimate, smart reasons to not. But if the stress of shortstop, and we've seen most of his injuries, I don't know what the heck the oblique was. It seemed like he just kind of woke up with it. But the hamstring, the shoulder, there's others, seem to come defensively. I just wonder if giving him a less stressful position, whether that's second base or what intrigues me more is actually center field. Because then you're still premium positions, speed plays. I think he's got the arm for it, all those things. If that might unlock something. The Royals have had, you may remember, some success moving a top shelf infield prospect to the outfield. I don't know. It's worth at least having a conversation. And if the answer is, look, like this guy is so streaky offensively that a lot of his value is defensively at that position, and that's why we need him there. If that's the answer, or if the answer is no, if we move him away from shortstop, that position means too much for him and we risk losing him mentally. I mean, there's a lot of different avenues that this might go down, but I don't know, man. Like whatever they're doing right now is not working. He's played 7 games. He hasn't, what's the stat? He hasn't played more than 104 games in a season since he was 18 years old, something like that.
And he's 25.
Yeah. Yeah. So and he's been a shortstop all those seasons. So something's not working. And I think to just keep hoping that all of a sudden he'll turn into a 140 games a year guy is not realistic. So it's an interesting idea. And I think it's a conversation worth having.
And of course, the player you referred to earlier was Alex Gordon, who was the National College Player of the Year as a third baseman at Nebraska, started his Royals career at third, moved to left field and won 8 Gold Gloves out there and had a tremendous career. So, Lynn, what's the I'll have to go back and look at the previous episode and see if that's where I saw it before. Lynn, what is the health update on Mondesi, or what's his ETA?
Well, they've been careful not to give an ETA because they know that's that's still up in the air. But he was taking the early work, like taking batting practice, taking ground balls, things like that. I mean, we saw him doing some of that yesterday. I don't remember seeing him actually running yesterday, but I know he's been doing stuff on the field. He was on the last road trip. I know he was, he's been doing ground balls, pregame work, batting practice, at least for a few days. He's eligible, and he's now eligible to come off the IL. It's just a matter of if he's ready to go. Like if they, clear him and he's good to go. I just, the fact that I believe it was a couple of days ago, Mike Matheny said running was going to be like sort of the main thing, the last hurdle. And I don't remember seeing him do. And maybe he did some of that before we were out there or whatnot, but without seeing that, I'm not sure how he's going to clear that last hurdle or when that's going to happen. So it's still the waiting game as far as, when he's going to be cleared to go. And I think there was some optimism that it could happen this homestand, but again, they were careful not to say for sure that it was going to. I think just because the Mondesi, when's he going to play thing is just, they don't want to put that pressure on to say, okay, it's going to happen this day and then it not happen. And, you know.
Right. And look, hamstrings are tricky things. They when you've injured a hamstring, it does keep you out for a while. And of course, that's just the nature of the beast here, right? Okay, guys. Paul sent me a text message, wanted to get a question in, but Paul, I think we'll do it next week. And he was just asking about if this trend continues, if the Royals continue this way, at what point do we look at possible shakeup on the staff? Let's talk about that next week, Paul, and maybe things will have turned around by then. This is, as we said at the top of the show, a team of extreme. What is it? They have had winning streaks, 2 winning streaks of at least 5 games and 2 losing streaks of at least 5 games, and they're the only team in baseball that has done that. So it's just when the team is in trending this way, it's hard to see them turn it around. But heck, the first time it was a series against the Chicago White Sox, who had the best record in the American League, I think, at the time. And after they finished with the Tigers, they go play the Boston Red Sox. So we'll see, maybe. So that Tigers and Red Sox here this week. After that, they go on the longest road trip, one of the longest road trips of the season, right, to New York to play the Yankees, to Texas, and then to Boston again. We will have full coverage of the Royals in the Kansas City Star and on kansascity.com with Lynn Worthy, with Sam Mellinger, with Vahe Gregorian, who we'll see here soon again. And thanks to our sponsor, the University of Kansas Health System. Thanks to Beth Welsh, our producer, who makes things go. And we will talk to you again next week at this time. Thank you very much.